Stuck inside my mind in this quarantine house. The light at the end of the tunnel isn't in sight. Where do I go to find someone to talk to about all of my flaws? You can never validate me, tell me the lies. I searched until nothing I found a therapist online. Said I'm anxious and depressed and my coping skills are not fine. We weren't a fit and it felt like a waste of time. I heard an interview and I felt an instant connection. I learned CBT, BBT, and mindfulness skills and each and every session. Now I'm pulling through, ready to ask the next question. The next question. The next question. The next question. The next question.
Hello and welcome to NextQuest podcast, where I ask your potential therapist questions so you don't have to. I am your host, Noah S. Garcia, licensed professional counselor supervisor. Today I welcome to the show Greer Culbertson, licensed clinical social worker, who will be discussing her practice and area of specialty, mindfulness. Welcome to the show, Greer.
Thanks for having me, Noah. Happy to be here.
It's so good to see you and talk to you. It's been wonderful. And for everybody who doesn't know, Greer is the one who wrote and performs along with her friend Landon Laws. Is that right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The intro song to this podcast. So I am really excited that she is back on the show. And yeah, it's so cool having my own theme music.
Did you say it's so cool to have your own theme music?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I feel like
it was you partially wrote it too. It was under your direction that I wrote it. So we did this together.
I feel like Peter Griffin on that episode of Family Guy where he gets his own theme music and there's this like guy that walks behind him playing a tuba. It's really funny. Anyway, back to you. So tell us, what are your credentials and experience?
So I am an LCSW, and I have, let's see, about 4.5, 5-ish years of being a therapist. Before that, I was working, I guess, before the psych hospitals, before private practice. Worked in medical hospitals for a little bit. The first job I ever had coming out of social work school was the American Cancer Society. Kind of dabbled here and there. But yeah, I've been a therapist for, I would say, roughly 5 years.
Awesome. And is your practice, is it your name or is it something else?
It's GC Mental Wellness LLC.
GC Mental Wellness LLC. All right. And your website?
Oh, what is my website? GreerLCSW.com.
Cool. So in your practice, do you accept insurance? If so, which ones? If not, why not?
I accept Blue Cross Blue Shield, PPO, Medicare, and Ambetter.
Cool. Do you have a sliding scale?
I do. Yeah.
Can you give us an idea of what that looks like?
It totally depends. So my rate is $150, but it kind of depends on what people's life situations are. If folks have gotten off of insurance and still want to see me and can't afford that rate, there's it's kind of a matter of what other people can afford within reason. I like to have that
Mhm.
conversation with everyone individually to make sure that it's fair and makes sense and feels comfortable for them.
Mhm.
So yeah, it differs. Everybody's different.
Yeah, everybody has different needs.
Mhm.
What about weekend or evening appointments?
Not at the moment. Mainly doing Monday through Thursday with the occasional Friday here and there.
Good for you. Now, is being a therapist your first career? If not, what was?
Career, yes. Job, no. Yeah, I kind of had a bunch of like random jobs here and there before starting social work school a couple of years after graduating college. And then, like I said, once I graduated from grad school a few years later, I kind of dabbled for a few years, traveled a little bit, wandered, flailed about, and then landed my about 5 years ago. And then that was it. I
Do
knew
you
it was
have
the one.
a Yeah. Do you have a favorite job that you had in the past before therapist times?
Uh, I loved being a barista. Loved it. Um, just it was the server job that I could actually do. So being a server was the probably the worst job I've ever had. Definitely, definitely fun, but pretty stressful because I had a really hard time remembering what everybody ordered.
Yes, that is the worst.
And I'm pretty clumsy, so I spilled quite a few drinks on people. But when you're a barista, you're behind the bar. And so it's
It's true.
pretty hard to spill things on people. And you have your regulars, and people come in and they're your friend and they tell you about their morning. And, you're sort of a therapist in a way, um, listening to people, getting to the deep stuff, asking people about their lives, having meaningful conversations.
That's
So
cool.
it was a good time.
What ultimately drew you to being a therapist?
You know, it's the only thing that's ever really made sense. That's felt right. It's felt like the thing. I grew up with a mother who was a therapist, and
Uh-huh.
I tried, to convince myself that maybe there was another path for me, that I was completely unique and original. But alas, when I fell into it, it proved otherwise. Um, yeah, I grew up talking about feelings and having deep cuts, and that's just kind of the way I roll. It's the way that I am energized and fulfilled, and just kind of connecting with people. It's where it's at.
Cool. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, like hobbies, interests, TV shows, music, etc., etc.
I love being outside. I do a lot of rock climbing, a big runner, um, camping, traveling, outdoorsy things where I don't have to wear my shoes are always nice. Just feeling the ground beneath my toes. Um, do a lot of yoga. I also write music. I guess if we, as we've sort of established at the beginning of this session or this session, this episode, do a lot of sessions. Um,
That's what most meetings
so
with people are. They're sessions.
exactly. Yeah. So this is a session.
Technically, yeah.
Okay. Everything. Okay, we're fine then. Um, yes, writing music. Play guitar, play piano, and I sing and write music for or with friends and for a little band situation.
So, what about TV? Do you watch any TV? Are you a TV type of person?
I'm not, and
Me
that is
neither.
not something. Did you say me neither?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not something I'm really proud of. I I get a lot of FOMO when I hear people talking about TV shows that they love. And the few times where I've gotten really involved in a series, it's great. Everybody, you can talk to other people about it. You can be part of something. You can kind of get in the flow state around it. But I don't allow myself to sit down and watch series. And that is something I wish I were better at.
I'm kind of the opposite. I don't really have a lot of interest in series. I don't have a lot of interest in fiction, period. I tend toward, if I watch something, it's like a matter of like habit and comfort, like Unsolved Mysteries, Forensic Files, those sorts of things. Not because I'm actually watching it when I'm watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of like background noise.
Yeah, it's comfortable, familiar.
But yeah, no, I can totally relate to the FOMO and like wishing I could get into something.
Mm-hmm. I do a lot of reading. I do allow myself
That's
that.
good.
That's kind of where I stop. And allow myself to stop. That's what I'm doing.
Very cool. So what modalities do you draw upon in addition to mindfulness?
So CBT and DBT are kind of the other two biggies that I say that I draw from, although there's a lot of overlap between all the things. DBT has a lot of mindfulness. Mindfulness is a huge component of dialectical behavior therapy.
Mm-hmm.
But those are kind of the three that CBT, DBT, and mindfulness I kind of say are the biggest ones that I draw from when you have to explain what it is that you do, even though so much of it is intuitive and unique to every session,
and contextual. Yeah. Yeah, I hated questions when I was looking for jobs, especially after becoming like an LPC. What are they called? Associates now. Getting asked, what would you do in this situation? And I'm like, I can't tell you what I would do in that situation because I'm not in that situation. Like, it's going to depend on the person, individual factors that I have no way of knowing through, the context that you provided. It's going to be, attributed to so much that I don't think those questions are fair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless it's like a question like so and so is telling you they have the plan, means, and intent to kill themselves. Like, what do you do? I mean, it's obvious in those situations, but in other situations, it's much more ambiguous without the actual context of the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how I felt about the LCSW test. Every single question, it could have been a different order of things, kind of depending on just the feel of the situation. So much about therapy is intuitive, kind of feeling it out. It's so hard to explain on a kind of objective level what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it.
It is. So tell us, what is mindfulness and where does it originate from?
So the basic definition of mindfulness is awareness, paying attention to the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally, with kindness. And it originates from, I think, a lot of religious and like secular traditions from the eastern parts of the world, Hinduism, Buddhism, yoga. I think, also other types of religions too. There's mindfulness components in Islam and Christianity and all of that. But most recently, Jon Kabat-Zinn is kind of one of the biggest names in mindfulness. He's sort of the one who brought mindfulness from the east to the west. Founded MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction. Has a lot of influence. Was influenced by and kind of you hear his name often with Thich Nhat Hanh. And Jack Kornfield and folks like that.
Cool. So what is mindfulness not?
Mindfulness is not inherently religious. Religions use it in, a lot of ways. It's used in religions, and it's used in, secular situations as well. It's not something that requires a belief in God or any other kind of, belief system. It's sort of a way of being. It's paying attention. It's also not synonymous with meditation. Meditation is a practice where you can cultivate the skill of mindfulness, but it's not like you have to sit down and meditate for half an hour or an hour every day in order to be practicing mindfulness. It can be practiced doing anything all day long, walking around, washing the dishes, you can sit there for 30 seconds and take a deep breath and be mindful about what you're thinking and doing, and that's mindfulness too. So much of therapy is mindfulness, taking a step back and just kind of paying attention to what you're doing, what you're thinking, where it's popping up.
So it sounds like there's a lot of intention behind it.
Absolutely. I'd say another good word to fit into the description, being intentional.
So how exactly does mindfulness work, and what are the benefits of it?
So mindfulness is taking that step back, when we give ourselves a moment between the stimulus, the trigger, the thing that kind of leads us to be reactive, and the response, what we're going to do, how we're going to behave from there. There's this space in between for a pause. Some call it postponement, whatever you want to call it, where we get to take a step back and really look at what's happening and decide what we want to do. It allows us to connect our frontal cortex to kind of the animal brain. It accesses the frontal cortex, the wiser part of our brain, and kind of quiets down that animal brain. That's the one that wants to be reactive in situations. And then we get to kind of make mindful, skillful decisions based on the resources that we have in our, the more frontal, wiser, more intelligent parts of our brain. Respond versus react. Respond instead of react.
So it can be a means of impulse control.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Impulse control, decrease in stress. Yeah, compassion, increase compassion for yourself and for others. Increased immune system activity.
That's cool.
Regulation of emotions. I can go on for days.
So what are the 3 qualities of mindfulness?
Are there actually 3 qualities that you're thinking of, or are you
I don't know. Of 3 qualities. Yeah.
3 particular qualities. Okay.
Let me rephrase that. What are 3 qualities of mindfulness?
Okay. I got that. Patience. Wait, that's something that it cultivates. Is that what you're asking? Like, what are the things that can be cultivated by mindfulness?
I guess, what are components of mindfulness that make it up as like a whole? Like, what are the different pieces that somebody would need to understand in order to put mindfulness into practice?
Are you talking in terms of like awareness, and kind of like how, like, attention to the present moment, like how to observe like what it is that you're thinking and feeling, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Those things. An attitude that's non-judgmental, curious, and kind. which is often a really challenging thing for people to do, to be able to look at themselves and their behaviors and their thoughts with an air of kindness. So often a way to like kind of introduce that skill or help people, use that skill is to think in terms of how they would think about or how they would act toward, speak to the people that they love, like small children or, a grandmother or a beloved pet, just anyone that someone would really care about, and being able to kind of take that attitude and that feeling of love and taking that back and turning it toward themselves.
So you would say like attention, attitude, and like non-judgmental observation.
Yeah.
Would be three important concepts.
Yeah.
Cool. What does mindfulness feel like?
I think mindfulness can feel like so many different things depending on who you are. Mindfulness can sometimes feel really uncomfortable. I mean, you're taking a step back and really looking at what is, and that's something that so many of us ignore and avoid at times when things are hard or scary. Once you've done it a lot, there are people who, talk about the equanimity of it, kind of being able to feel all things at the same time and kind of rest in that space. And in my own experience, I kind of, when I'm able to fully kind of sit back and look at it all and kind of be separate from it, there's sometimes a slight, like, kind of feel like a slight energy about you, or like an ever so slight tingling when I'm able to kind of just sit with my whole body and look at what it is to be sitting with my whole body at the same time. And that doesn't always happen. A lot of the times when I try to sit with mindfulness, it's stressful and it's scary, it's frightening. But it can also be very peaceful in times when I do feel like I'm able to kind of take a deep breath in it and relax into it. So I think it's different depending on everyone.
Yeah, that sounds accurate. That sounds like close to my experience too, that kind of tingliness. It can be difficult to achieve, and I think that's why it's called like a practice,
Yeah, and I think that's also something I try to stay away from, is talking about how it's something to achieve, how it's something that it's a goal that we need to reach. It's just it's just a practice of stepping back. And sometimes that's really hard to do, and sometimes it really sucks, and sometimes it's really informative and really peaceful. But the fact that you did it means that you're doing it. You don't have to get anywhere to be good at it.
I like that. So I know a lot of people have the question, what is the difference between mindfulness and meditation? And what about a mindfulness meditation versus a regular meditation?
So I think mindfulness is a quality of mind, and meditation is more of a focused, intentional, like, practice, where you can use mindfulness, but that's not the only thing that you would necessarily use in meditation. Whereas with mindfulness, you don't have to necessarily be meditating, kind of like what I talked about earlier, where Thich Nhat Hanh talks a lot about, washing the dishes while being mindful eating, just kind of being aware of whatever you're doing, these basic things that we have to do all day, every day. And so meditation is a way in which to improve our ability to be mindful, or improve our ability to remember to be mindful. Among other things, there's so many different types of meditation to, help increase concentration, which can also go hand in hand with mindfulness. But they're two separate things. Whereas mindfulness is more of a relaxed, maybe gentle kind of way of just observing and being aware, rather than focusing your attention on something and striving towards something.
Got it. So you talked about this a little bit earlier, but just to kind of recap, what are the benefits of regularly practicing mindfulness?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about kind of the way that it can, the response in our body, decrease in stress, increasing the functioning of our body, increasing memory, all these different things that there have been studies on that shown that it really is helpful. One of the big things that I'm interested in, and especially when doing therapy, is how it brings attention to the stories that we're telling ourselves about ourselves. When we are reactive, so often we are unaware that we're being reactive, and in turn are unaware of how we are then blaming others and or ourselves. Usually they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
For things that are happening to us, and that turns into the stories that we're telling ourselves about ourselves and others, which often goes into kind of the negative core beliefs of I'm not good enough, or all these terrible things that we tell ourselves. And when we're doing those things without realizing that we're doing them, it can be so harmful. So taking that step back and just kind of drawing a little bit of attention to it, even for a few seconds, can often be so informative and liberating. We realize, okay, this is a story I'm telling myself, and I actually have the power to change it and to alter it. It takes the stepping back and really looking at what we're doing to perpetuate these thoughts, and reminds us we have the power and freedom to alter that and shift it and feel better.
Yeah, I like that. The power and freedom.
Yeah.
Those are both really good, strong words.
Mm-hmm.
So, we know it can be helpful, but why should we do it?
Why would you not, Noah?
Well, I mean, like thinking about it, say I'm just going about my day and I'm going to the grocery store. Why, when I'm in that grocery store, should I practice mindfulness while I'm there?
I think it always goes back to kind of the reactivity, kind of the animal brain, kind of feeling irritated and restless, and what we do when we're uncomfortable. When we're standing in line at the grocery store, I always think of that video, David Foster Wallace, the one that the graduation video. Have you ever seen it?
I don't think I have, no.
It's called This Is Water. It is profound. Gotta see it.
I'm gonna look it up.
So try to think if I can explain it. Basically, the concept is there's a fish swimming around in water all day, every day of its life, and another fish comes up to it, and is like something along the lines of, the water's great, other fish, and or like, it's a great day to be in the water, something like that. And the fish just looks at the other fish and is like, what's water? So the idea is we don't notice what we're doing or what we're thinking, or we don't take a step back to exist where we're existing and do what we're doing. We're always in the past. We're always in the future. We're always trying to figure something out. We're always creating a story that
trying to predict something.
Mm-hmm.
Is what a lot of people do, and that can create so many different issues.
Absolutely. Yeah, trying to use that to control kind of everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, something I try to work a lot with folks on is what would it be like to kind of let go of that control and trying to frame that as a form of control. Mm-hmm. Like my control is stepping back and looking at it. It's releasing control, but also it's a choice that I'm making.
Right.
And once we can do that, there's so much relief to it. So yeah, in that video, I think it's like 7 minutes, 11 minutes. I don't know. My memory fails me, but it shows, people standing in a line at a grocery store and talks about, he's talking to a bunch of people or a bunch of about to be graduates of college and talking to them about what adult life is like. And he's like, it's boring and it's hard and it's stressful. And, there's all this discomfort that's coming up. And if we're standing in line, like tapping our foot and like, shaking our head, and we're suffering because we're just reacting and we're thinking about what we need to do, and we're mad at our boss and all of these things. And if we can just stop and be present and look around at what we see around us, and, if you look at the cashier and you don't realize that that cashier has had, a terrible trauma that day, something happened, someone was in a car accident or someone died. And if you can kind of just sit there and look around and really like be present, then you can allow that to kind of go into other people. You can empathize with others, and people feel your energy. The way that we're looking at ourselves and being present with ourselves has so much to do with the way we relate to others. People feel that, people see that. We're mirrors. So it's a really good video. Okay, back to the question. What was the question?
The question was, why should we regularly practice mindfulness? Like, so like if I'm at a grocery store, like why practice mindfulness,
Yeah. Just to...
I think you answered that in that it's like a choice between, it can be a choice between distress or not in some ways.
Yes. That brings me to one of my favorite lines that has helped me personally in so many ways, and I use so often with my clients, that pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. Life is hard. Life is challenging. It's full of so much stress, and we can choose to suffer with it more, or we can take a step back, be mindful, and be with it, give it the attention that it needs, honor it, instead of perpetuating in unnecessary ways. And obviously all of that is much easier said than done, but it's something I try to live by. I think it's helpful to think about.
Yeah, for sure. So what would you say to somebody who feels like their mind is too restless and they wouldn't be any good at mindfulness?
I would say nonsense. Nobody is any good at mindfulness. No, mindfulness. I mean, yes, I probably would say something to that effect, but obviously very kindly. Yeah, mindfulness is hard. It's not something, I don't know. I think there are people who can maybe be good at it, better at it than others in some ways. Like it's easier for some people to calm their minds. It's easier for some people to settle down and get into more of a place of peace. But like I said earlier, it's not a destination. It's not a goal. The fact that you did it is, you did it. That's it. You did it. That's mindfulness. I can sit here for 20 minutes and have my mind try to be mindful, and have my mind wander for 20 straight minutes, and have my alarm go off after 20 minutes and not have really focused on anything or noticed anything. The trying of it, the going through the process and the attempt to pay attention to what is happening in the moment. All I come to at the end of 20 minutes is, wow, my mind is restless. I did the thing. It's just kind of noticing the state of things. And if things are overwhelming and things are feeling all over the place, then now I know that because I sat back and looked at it and it was all over the place.
Awesome.
Doesn't that sound fun?
It does sound fun. I'd love to see things all over the place. How did you personally discover mindfulness, and why do you think it's an important skill to teach in therapy?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I can't remember when I first heard about it, and what I thought about it then. But as far as I remember now, it has always been such an exciting word for me, such an exciting concept for me. Partially because it's so like, I feel like foreign to what my brain wants to do, which I'm not unique in that at all, right? Like I have such a monkey mind, and I know that a lot of us do. Um, and the idea that there's something that I can do to kind of bring ease and calm and lower stress and make me feel kind of okay about all of the chaos that is in my mind is such a relief and so exciting. Um, and so yeah, I think part of the reason I'm so interested in it is because it is such a challenge for me. It's not something that I feel like comes naturally to me. Um,
I love
and
that.
yeah,
I love that you're very like open with that and vulnerable in that. Because I think that that is what attracts a lot of us about a lot of different things in therapy, right? Is you know, man, this was really hard for me, but look at all the good that can come from it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, really sitting with it and noticing it, and going as, feeling it as far as it needs to be felt is the way ultimately to freedom. You feel it and you feel it and
Yeah.
you feel it and you do it and you go through it, and then it subsides. It finally,
Hmm.
if you watch it for long enough, you can see it kind of float away like leaves in a stream, or clouds in the sky.
Leaves in the stream. There's actually a stream that Daddy and I, when we go for our walks, we pass over every time. And every time I stop and we look down and look at all the fishies. And, it's sometimes I just watch the algae or the leaves, go from one side of the bridge to the other and get sucked underneath. And I'd like to think that in those
Mm-hmm.
moments, I'm practicing mindfulness.
You are. Yeah. Being with the dog, it really helps.
Oh, dogs, you have to be mindful to be with a dog.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how
Well,
can you
yeah.
not when they lick your face
How can you not? And they're doing it. They're living in the present.
all the time?
Always. Even this morning, my sister came outside and told me that she was grateful to her puppy for helping her see every single thing in her room that she never thought about or noticed. Because went around and sniffed this random little thing in the corner that she didn't know was there. Went over and really looked at, I don't know, like a piece of dirt on the floor, and she learned so much about something, water. She finally was acknowledging some of the water, quote unquote, in her room that it's constantly surrounding her, that she's not paying attention to because she's going from one thing to the next. She watched how her dog watched the things, and she was able to find that helpful and see it as mindfulness.
Did you hear that, Patty? You help with mindfulness. She looks at me.
Like, I don't care about this people tomfoolery.
No, she obviously does not. All she cares about are WALKIEs, IESs, WALKIESs. Yes, that I can spell.
I have
um,
no idea what you're saying, what you're spelling, and so I think that's probably clear.
She's gonna learn to spell soon. I just have a feeling. Um, so really, I know mindfulness can look different from person to person. Is there like a certain amount of time somebody should be practicing mindfulness a day, like, intentionally setting that time aside, or what does a practice of mindfulness typically look like?
It's so different for everyone. And yeah, it's hard to talk about when we're not talking about one specific person. I feel like that's something that a person has to decide for themselves. And also, like, as a therapist, I, kind of know what a person's day-to-day looks like and can maybe offer suggestions on when to plug it in, like something stressful is about, when stressful things might happen and what that might look like, in terms of creating mindfulness practice in order to be more proactive with situations like that. But yeah, there's often that magic number of 20 minutes that floats around. People talk about 20 minutes of meditation a day being so valuable, but also 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, sometimes even 1 minute, like getting in an elevator. I mean, I don't know, we really don't do that lately, but like someday we'll be back in elevators. You get in an elevator and you take deep breaths the whole time you're in the elevator. That counts. It's been helpful for me in the past to set an alarm on my phone for maybe 2 or 3 times a day that just says breathe. The alarm goes off, I take a couple deep breaths, and then I go back into the thing that I'm doing. That's been really useful for me in the past when I'm super busy. So, I think I mentioned this earlier, MBSR, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, just the John Kabat-Zinn thing. There's a whole free MBSR program online that's 8 weeks long, and has tons of great videos and articles and various practices, mindfulness practices that you can do. And if you want to like go through the whole program, you can. And I think it takes roughly 40-ish minutes a day to kind of do the things they suggest to do, if you want to like get the certificate. But it's also kind of just a helpful resource base for kind of exploring various types of things, and kind of seeing what resonates with you. If you don't want to do it in any particular kind of structured way, there's a lot of good evidence-based options there.
Cool. Are there any certain populations or issues that mindfulness, primarily such skills as body scans, would be contraindicated?
Sorry, I'm turning on my lamp. Okay. I think that certain ways of practicing mindfulness are probably not safe for everyone, at certain times, especially people who are in a very, very vulnerable situations, kind of where they're living kind of chronic trauma. I think that, taking a step back and breathing can be really frightening for some people and dangerous in situations like that. I think that in those moments in time, or, those longer periods of time where that is occurring, talking to a therapist or someone who's informed and being in a safe space in order to explore these ideas, if that is something the person's interested in doing or is able to do, is really important. So kind of high crisis, high stress times, there needs to be some sort of safety protocol around it, or might not even be useful. I mean, there's some people who are, report in high stress. It can make you more stressed and not work for you in that moment. But I think for people over the lifespan, there are times in your life where it's easier to do than others, to learn. And I think that this skill, like anything else, is best learned when you're regulated, when you're feeling okay, when you're in a safe space, so that when you are in the higher crisis moments, the knowledge of that, or the impulse or the reminder to do that, is more easily accessible.
That
So
makes
if
sense.
you're not in a place like that, opposite. I mean, when we're in fight or flight, we can't form memories, right? Like we're just trying to protect ourselves and stay safe. So in order to learn new skills, we have to be in a place where we do feel safe and where we do have space for that.
Very good points. Very good points. I've also read a lot and thought a lot about it. And like, for example, like for some trans people, body scans may not be an appropriate tool. You know, I know there's plenty of alternatives out there, but that's just something to keep in mind for people.
Absolutely.
Can you describe a few mindfulness strategies that our listeners could, you know, maybe try out?
Absolutely.
Awesome. I'm excited.
So there's one that I borrowed from Tara Brach, who is a wonderful psychologist who's big into this stuff, big name in mindfulness. She uses the acronym RAIN. So this is ideally what you do, or what you proactively learn how to do beforehand, to be able to access in times when you need it, between stimulus and response. So first you recognize you're in whatever kind of state you're in, you're feeling whatever it is that you're feeling, you kind of notice whatever's going on, you recognize that that's happening. You allow it to be there, you name it, kind of taking a step back from it, you name it rather than identifying with it. So there's a slight separation between you and it. And then the A is allow. You let it be what it is. You let it kind of flow through you. You take deep breaths. You try to stay with it as long as you can. And then you investigate. I connect with it. For me, that's kind of means, usually I try to guide folks to, kind of pay attention to where it's coming up in their body, how it's coming up in their body. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it heavy? How can they describe it? And then also investigating what's going on in their mind around it too. What are the thoughts that are perpetuating it? What are the thoughts that are perpetuated by it? What's keeping it going? What might I be telling myself that is false or not helpful or irrational around it? And then the N, which is often the hardest part, nurturing yourself. What do you need to be nurtured in this space? Is it speaking to yourself kindly? Is it touching yourself in a kind way? I often put my hand on my heart. That feels like I'm connecting with myself and giving myself compassion. For a lot of people, putting your hand on your neck, just kind of like a vulnerable part of yourself, like squeezing, maybe even giving yourself like a hug. For a lot of people, like rituals, religious rituals, or some sort of, whatever kind of coping skill that they have. Nurturing can mean so many things depending on the person.
That's really cool. So I like that one a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too.
You happen to have one more?
Oh, there's so many. Yeah, I've been using Cybam a lot. Have you heard of Cybam?
Not familiar.
It's okay. And I haven't been somatic experiencing trained, so I don't know much about, I can't speak much to it, but I was taught this technique and I found it really useful. It's from somatic experiencing. It's the acronym. The acronym stands for sensation, image, behavior, affect, and meaning. So I've used this one quite a bit with, I feel like, and this might be a generalization, but from at this moment, it seems like I use RAIN more often with folks who are kind of dysregulated and kind of need to come back. And I use SIBAM more often with folks who are having a hard time accessing their feelings at all.
Interesting.
For people who can't, for people who are having a hard time feeling it, or feeling it in the way they think they're supposed to feel it, right? Which oftentimes that kind of, that brings up, that allows us to talk about what it is that you think you need to be feeling, and where does that come from? Why do you think you need to be feeling it in this way? You're feeling it in the way that you're feeling it, and can that be enough? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. So yeah, sensation. What sensations am I feeling in my body? That can very much be a way of feeling an emotion, is just, I'm feeling these sensations in my body. I didn't previously think of them as connected to what it is that I'm feeling, but now that I'm looking at it in this way, I'm recognizing that they are a part of it. I as image. What images are coming up in my mind as I'm thinking about this, or I'm sitting with this? B, behaviors. What am I doing right now? What is this? What is this driving me to do? Am I wanting to avoid? Am I wanting to cry? But feeling like I can't? Just kind of objective observation, curiosity around all of that. And then A, affect, feeling, emotion, if you can point to it. And with any of these, you might not be able to access one or two or three of them. I might just be able to really point to, an image that's coming up, but I'm not sure what the feeling is, and that's okay. It's part of it. And then M is meaning. What am I telling myself about it? What are the irrational thoughts that are perpetuating it? Or what am I telling myself about the way that I'm experiencing this thing right now, that I'm not doing it right? So yeah, just kind of a way to really look at like a big picture experience of an emotion.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks for the new techniques, Greer.
Anytime. I got so many up my sleeve.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So regarding mindfulness, what would you say are some common misconceptions about it?
Common misconceptions around mindfulness. I think that it's supposed to work. I'm using quotes here, and then I'm also using quotes with fail, that you can fail at it. Some people can do it, that some people can't do it. I mean, I definitely think, as we were talking about earlier, some people shouldn't do it, at least in the space that they're in the feelings that they're having, in the space that they're in their life, and the trauma that they're dealing with it. Maybe that's not the time for it, at least for learning it. I've done a lot of work with mindfulness, and then you go through a traumatic event. It's different than if you haven't ever. It's not it when it's a new skill versus when it's one that you're really well versed in and that you found a lot of use for already. That it's about stopping thinking, as though that's possible. There are some people who claim that they can stop thinking. I don't know if I believe those people. I don't think I've ever stopped thinking for more than 2 seconds of my entire life. Yeah, it's about taking a step back and noticing that you're thinking, noticing what the thoughts are like. I do think it's possible after some time to slow things down. That's hard.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That it'll make all my problems go away. That it's just about all that fun stuff. I
just
wish.
About positive thinking.
Think positively, and you're being mindful.
I don't really like the whole idea of thinking positively. Like, why not just think reasonably, rationally? You know,
Yeah.
like why do we have to think positively in order for something to be effective? I don't think that's true.
Yeah, it's unrealistic on kind of the other side of like there's the
Right,
irrational negative thoughts and then there's the irrational positive thoughts.
right.
It's not finding that kind of balanced gray area of the dialectical thing.
Yeah. So switching gears to you as a therapist, what kind of experience do you have working with particularly vulnerable clients, such as those who are transgender, undocumented, or BIPOC, to name a few examples?
So I have quite a bit of experience working with transgender folks as well as BIPOC. Yeah, not so much undocumented in the areas that I've worked, but yeah, kind of both in like in hospital settings as well as in private practice. I have
Mhm.
a lot of transgender folks and a lot of BIPOC folks.
Cool. So, what could a new client expect from an initial session with you, and what about on an ongoing basis?
Such a tough question because everyone's different and I can't say that enough. But I like to start where the person is. I want them to tell me what they need, and if they don't know what they need, then I guide them to help them figure that out. I'm not an interviewer. I don't want to. I don't know. I want them to kind of be where they are and talk about what it is they need to talk about. And if they don't know that, then I kind of guide them to do that. But being present and talking about kind of the here and now around what's going on. And also we spend a lot of time talking about what our relationship is like and what's it like to talk about these things and what's it like to be confused about what I need and all of those things. So very like here and now, present oriented. But yeah, I think after a while, most of my clients kind of, if they weren't like this at the beginning, they kind of catch on to, I come in with what I need. And if I don't know what I need, we talk about how I don't know what I need, that sort of thing, rather than kind of like expecting me to interview them. Because if I'm interviewing them and if I'm coming up with my own questions for them, we're not starting where they are. We're starting with my own agenda. And that doesn't work for me.
Gotcha. How would you say your clients describe or experience you?
That's a tough one. I'd like to ask them. It'd be fun to know.
Send out a survey.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I strive to be open-minded and non-judgmental and open and insightful and also challenging. I'm not afraid to challenge folks. Very kindly, of
Yeah.
course. But yeah, hopefully that's how they see me. And that's what it feels. That's what it feels like I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that challenging is such an important part of the job. I think we've got to be able to challenge our clients on things and in a kind way at that.
Absolutely. Delicate balance.
Uh-huh. Are you a therapist who will laugh or cry with your clients?
Yes. I do a lot of laughing. I cry, but I'm not quite sure. I don't do a lot of crying with clients, but when I cry, I feel like I often use that to kind of inform my being with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that is necessarily outward,
Mm-hmm.
especially hard to see on teletherapy these days.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll mention that I'm feeling really sad about something, but usually it just kind of informs. It's usually something that's being brought up in me that I can use kind of like to empathize and kind of be with the client. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How do you define holding space for someone?
Holding space for someone. Being with them, feeling what it is that I'm feeling while they're talking about what it is that they're feeling or thinking about, and then using that to be with them in the space. Yeah.
What is the best advice you've ever received from a supervisor?
To not be attached to results. That was a pretty tough thing, which is mindfulness, right? Yeah, it's a pretty tough thing to learn, like early on. You go in there and you want to help someone, you want to fix it all for them and with them, and you want them to do the things that are healthy and great for them. And oftentimes it's just not really how it goes. And that's okay. That's not the point. You're not supposed to fix all the things for them. You're supposed to be with them while they're going through this journey.
Right.
Yeah.
What have you personally learned about yourself and or the world through your practice?
Oh, gosh, it's just so much. I think along the lines of kind of what we're talking about, I've learned, doing therapy is might be the most kind of grounding experience that I have, because I absolutely have to just be present with and for someone, which means I have to be present with myself. There's really no other option. So yeah, it's kind of taught me, I can talk about mindfulness all day, and I can try, I can go to a Vipassana for 10 days, which, I've done before, and all of that is just kind of like skills being thrown at me, but like really putting it into, I feel like therapy has kind of been the place where I've really truly understood what it meant to be mindful and be present.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
What do you do to take care of yourself?
Sleep.
It's a good one.
Yeah. And, all the hobbies I mentioned earlier, I'm really active and, don't, sometimes have a hard time stopping, but I need a lot of sleep. And if I don't get it, I am not nearly as effective. So that's kind of the top priority.
Very important.
Mm-hmm.
How would you define happiness?
Happiness is a wonderful, beautiful, fleeting experience. I think when people talk about wanting to be happy, to me, I imagine that that's what I am seeing as contentedness or okayness.
Neutrality.
Because happiness isn't something that's sustainable. And I mean that in the least pessimistic way.
Yeah, and it's not a final destination. Like, we don't just get there and stay there.
Exactly. And if we did, it wouldn't be happiness.
Right.
Because we would go back down to that baseline. Happiness and joy are similar in that way. Joy is, they're both things, we strive for. We want to feel them. It's great when we get there. But we also have to be at the neutrality, part for a while in order to experience those things as such.
Totally agree. Next couple questions are a little vulnerable. What is the most embarrassing moment you have had as a clinician?
That was very vulnerable. There's no way around it.
Just through it.
Exactly.
Or you can next question it, but
no, it's okay. I think that what I'm about to say makes me human, as though you had a doubt. But So let's see, a while ago, quite a few months ago, I had a session with a client, and at the very end, things went well, things went fine. The very end, he was like, "Thank you for everything. Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Of course." And he said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for asking. What made you think that? And he was like, "You have been shaking your leg the entire time we've been talking." And this is over teletherapy.
Uh-huh.
And so I wasn't really aware of it. It made me, like stop and really check myself. Like, how often am I shaking my leg? I know I shake my leg as it's kind of a grounding thing for me. But I also think that day I'd had a lot of coffee, and I was tired. And so that really kind of hit me and, made me feel uncomfortable for a bit. Like, oh my gosh, like we broke the fourth wall. We're talking to the therapist about it. But I don't know, after some reflection and also talking to him about it a bit too, kind of, what was that like to experience me shaking my leg and, see me as a human like that. It was healing. It was healing for both, our space together, and also just helpful for me to remind myself, like, you're human, you're going to be a human. Part of the reason why you can be a good therapist is because you're a human.
Right.
And also helped me check myself, right? Like, I don't want to be someone who's like, shaking my leg all the time either. But so yeah, it was educational and informative, but in the moment I was really embarrassed.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Next vulnerable question. Are you in therapy, or have you ever been in therapy?
Absolutely to both.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you think would be good for a potential client or other therapists to know about you or mindfulness?
I think we've covered it.
Yeah, we've covered a lot today.
We have. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being on the show, Greer.
Yeah.
The next question. The next question. The next question. The next question.
Thank you for listening to NextQuest podcast. I learned something new today, and I hope you did too. Next week's episode will feature Christian Filli, certified integral coach and associate certified coach, who will be speaking about his practice and area of specialty, life coaching. NextQuest podcast is sponsored by Jan Dimmitt Resources. Save yourself the time and stress of credentialing and let the experts at Jan Dimmitt Resources do what they do best. For over 20 years, Jan Dimmitt Resources has provided administrative support and credentialing services to mental health professionals in Texas and beyond. Visit their website at jandimmitt.com. That is JANDIMMITT.com, or call 512-731-5725 for more information on all the ways they can make running your practice easier for you. NextQuest podcasts rely solely on donations to keep this project going. Please consider becoming a patron on my Patreon page at www.patreon, that's patreon.com/NextQuestPodcast, or you can make a one-time donation on my website at www.nextquestcounseling.com/aboutnextquestpodcast. You can also support the podcast by liking our Facebook page. Until next question, this is Noah Garcia signing off.